So when we think about and address these issues, almost at an industry level, a couple of things come quite clear to me. One is that when we look at the research that we've performed, we get the same kind of attacks and the same kind of proportions, whether it's malware or different activities. Yes, they're becoming more sophisticated and they're behaving in a different way. But two of the pieces that I pulled out from our Cost of Cybercrime report, which is available outside, free, you don't have to buy it, is that yes, I expect the number of attacks to go up. Yes, I expect the cost of those attacks to go up. I didn't necessarily expect that from 2010 to 2014, the time it takes for us to remediate those attacks has gone up massively, from 2 weeks to 6 weeks. We've added 2 weeks since last year. Last year it was a month. Now, yes, we're spending more money. Budgets, sort of IT security budgets going up by 5%. We're spending more money, we're understanding controls better, but that's not helping me at all. And we tried to get into why that is. The adversary kill chain hasn't changed very much. So when we think about the way in which people attack us, that hasn't changed very much. They're still researching us, they're still selling that information, they're still getting in. The barriers, the perimeters don't stop people anymore, and they're going through that process. We may be starting to get better at crisis management and breach response around exfiltration. We may be starting to invest a little bit more around discovery and monitoring, as we talked about this morning. But we still spend 80% of our budget at that infiltration perimeter defense stage. And my research teams, what they tell us, that the adversaries have completely changed 3 areas of their use of this kill chain. They themselves have become much better organized, much better funded, and able to operate in a completely different way. The gap we had a couple of years ago between a nation state and a cyber criminal cartel, whether it's drug-related or otherwise, has completely collapsed now. There's a relatively small number of globally operating gangs who are now as well funded and as have the capabilities to execute those attacks. The adversary has out-evolved us. The malware has as well. It's evading the perimeter. It's also evading, the first and second generation of monitoring techniques, so it's able to spoof different parts of our hardware and infrastructure. And that's something we need to keep a watch out for. But the other thing which has really changed and evolved over the last couple of years is the marketplace. So a global online cyber security marketplace, whether it's funded by digital currencies or not, and no matter how quickly we take down various incarnations of Silk Road, is allowing those adversaries to share and collaborate in a much faster and a much more efficient way than we could ever imagine, because they're not hampered by regulation. So what does that really mean when we think about the capabilities that we have and where do we need to improve? And this sort of gives you an insight into how at HP we're thinking about and investing in the research horizon, which goes out from 2 to 5 to 7 years. So what we're going to face this year, and luckily some of these predictions are starting to come horribly true in the last month or so, we do think that we haven't seen a major mobile mass-scale exploit or concern, and that's going to really come to the fore. We've seen a lot of malware. We see increasing numbers of Trojans for Android devices, in particular iOS. We've seen iCloud being looked at very carefully by the adversary, but we think from a mobile perspective there's something that's going to happen in the next 10 to 12 months. We also see a huge and continuing concern around open source technologies, how it's used, how it's secured, how we manage that. And for us as custodians of some of those technology building blocks in our organizations, I think we need to take a very long look at how we are managing our open source adopted software. The supply chain, as we talked about, again, large IT suppliers, small aggregated suppliers, legal people, audit firms, all the way down to, as Target know, the aircon suppliers giving access through an invoicing portal into their systems to wreak havoc at point of sale. So, that's a huge area that we aren't able to deal with as individuals. We can enshrine it in contracts, yes, but we need to change how we deal with third-party suppliers, in particular those who help us with our technology. And I won't ever dare to mention the word cloud, but this is that's a really important part of that. And we know when we take an adversary-centric view of the world, when we look and understand what the adversaries, the cyber criminal gangs are doing, they're specializing in vertical sectors and industry markets. We've seen that in retail last year. We've starting to see it in healthcare as well. And we've seen them move away within the retail space from point of sale to payment aggregating service providers. We've seen exactly the same movement within industrial control systems in manufacturing and energy provision. They're moving away from individual devices to the control systems all the way up the chain.